I wouldn't really have gone up and, punched the beast in the nose and put a great big target on my back. That was foolish, and I did a foolish thing. However, I'm a person of principle, and I will do what I say I'm going to do, and I've done that. I would probably do things more from a documented standpoint. I would do things from an administrative approach and be very careful to document everything that I did, thinking that it would lead to what happened. That I'm going towards a trial and I'm preparing myself for that. Now, I'll stand here and say, I didn't really do that. I mean, I had beliefs. I had conversations with many, many, many people, including a lot of you people, and that's where my beliefs came from. And I did what I did. But to answer your question, it would be different from the standpoint of really preparing myself to have a trial. That's what I would do different.
Dick, I'm just curious as to why you refused to give the fingerprints, even if a law didn't demand it, because you knew you were going to have to give them when you got out anyway. I mean, they're not going to release you without positively identifying you.
All right, you're not the first person to ask that question. Many of the people that I was in the hole with, of course, and a little bit before that, asked the exact same question. Why don't you give them the damn prints and get the hell out of here? All right. Why do they, when I'm looking at the law and I'm looking at, gee, there's nothing there about fingerprints, but these guys want fingerprints. What's the big deal? The big deal is, Scripture says, life is in the blood, okay? The law says you got to give them your blood. Why? Well, they want to take your blood, they want to do the DNA analysis on it, and then they want to catalog that analysis in what's called the codex system by the FBI. The FBI runs this codex system, and everybody's DNA goes into it. What they do with that is they compare it against all crimes done in the past that are unsolved that have DNA connected to it. Well, at the time, I think I read somewhere that DNA was about 82% accurate. Now, I think over the past 7 years, or maybe a little more, they might have gotten a little more accurate than that. However, there is some percentage of error. One of the reasons I didn't want to give them my fingerprints was because I didn't want them to put my DNA in the codex system and have that error come up and maybe be charged with some crime that I didn't do. Now, a lot of people thought in prison that I was hiding something. That's why I wasn't giving them my DNA. And I said, listen to me, I gave them my DNA. They took my blood. I don't have nothing to hide. So anyways, the one reason that I didn't want my DNA in that codex system, all right, and life is in the blood. You remember I said something about authorization in the law. Where's the authorization? And I said that these fingerprints were the authorization. Now, if you give them the blood and you give them the authorization to take the blood, and at the same time as you giving them authorization, you're waiving your right to all interest in your property that you have given them, or they have taken, which is what the case is they've taken that property that you have, and now by your fingerprints, you waive all that interest that you had in that blood. So that's what I didn't want to do, is waive my interest and give them authorization to take my property. Now, in my research, when I was doing reading the law books on this, there was a court case, Kincaid, U.S. versus Kincaid, where the Supreme Courts had already gone through the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the privacy rights and all that stuff, and they said, well, this doesn't apply. However, at the end of the Kincaid case, one of the dissenting judges said that we have not addressed this issue from a property standpoint. There's my door. So I'm not claiming Fourth Amendment violation. I'm not claiming Fifth Amendment violation. I'm claiming theft. That's what I'm claiming. They need my authorization to take my bodily fluid. They do the same thing when they drug test you from time to time in one of these facilities that's run by the feds. They do a piss test. And when they do that, you pee in a little cup and they test it for drugs. However, they have you sign the document, initial here and initial here. Why do they do that? Because they need your authorization to take your bodily fluids. Give them all the piss they want, just don't sign the document. They can't use it. Even if it's dirty, they can't use it because they fail to get your permission to take your property. So, one of the little things I learned in prison, they can't take something from you without you telling them they can have it. In prison, they want your signature a lot. And they want it for two reasons. One, they want your permission to hurt you. Two, they want your signature because you're waiving a right. That's the only reason they want your signature. They either want to hurt you or they want you to waive a right. 4 years ago, I stopped signing everything when I found that out. I tried to get an address where I was going to be staying when I was released from prison. My case manager, I said, well, I don't know where I'm going to be. He said, isn't that what halfway house is for? You got to give me a halfway house so I can find a place to live, find a job, get a car, da-da-da. Oh, but we need to know where you're going to be staying. Well, I don't know. So a couple of days I get called down to see my so-called case manager. He says, I've got your probation officer on the phone. He wants to talk to you. I says, I don't have a case manager, or I told the case manager, I said, I don't have a probation officer. He says, well, your future probation officer. I said, oh, okay. So he gave me the phone, and I said, hello. And he said, Mr. Simkanin, this is David Scott. I'm going to be your probation officer when you get to Fort Worth, when you're released from prison. I said, okay. He says, I need to know what your address is going to be so we can check things out. I said, I'll tell you what, Mr. Scott, as soon as I locate the bridge I'll be living under, I'll let you know. He says, let me talk to your case manager.